At first, everybody lived in tents. Everybody that was there was mostly Hispanic. Tent is like a piece of cloth, and that's rag. So rag is garra. So they used to call them la garra. In English, they translated that to Ragtown. My grandmother, with her first husband, Mr. Trujillo, decided to come to the Fort Lupton area at first, and they did agriculture there. And then they heard about this little town east of Eaton. There was a lot of agriculture, beets, onions, topping beets. I mean, it was really thriving, so everybody was going to be able to work. It was Depression time, but everybody, including my grandma, like I said at the time, pregnant, she was out in the field working too, because everybody had to do it was either that or die of hunger. Years passed, and grandma's sons all grew up, and grandma remarried, and that's where my granddad came, Mr. Jaramillo. And still, they were working out in the fields, and that was like in the early 30s. My mom and my aunt would be home making. They were only like 6 and 7, 8 years old, and they were making food for everybody that was out working in the fields. They had it really rough, but nobody knew that. They were all happy until they started talking to other people. One of my mom's friends' granddaughter was stabbed to death by her own son. I mean, where's that? What's happening? Why can't people move from there and become better, or why don't they stay there and think more positive? Think about doing things that are going to be good for the community, not drag it down more. It's just so sad. I'm just glad I have my good memories, and I'm glad, that my mom moved us out when she did. I really am, because as far as I'm concerned, that's what saved me. When I went to school, we were still poor in a sense that we didn't have all the new gadgets and everything, but we didn't know that until we got to school. I remember I went into kindergarten and I didn't know a word of English. And I still remember my teacher, Mrs. Boer, keep telling me that it was milk, and I kept telling her, no, it's leche. And she would say, no milk, and I would say, no leche. I was an argumentative child since day one. I would come home from school and get to a certain part just before Ragtown, and you could smell, Grandma made bread today, and we knew we were going to have bread and some of her homemade jelly and jams and choke cherries and strawberries, and oh my gosh, that was awesome. Right now I can taste it. My mouth is watering. That's how good of a memory it is. These are the doors that I went into the first day of my kindergarten. I'll never forget. To this day, he's still my buddy, Artie Meyer. and little German guy with really blonde hair and freckles, and he and I didn't know each other, but we looked at each other. I was way taller than him. He was shorter because I've always been tall. And he grabbed my hand, and I grabbed his, and we walked into the school right here. And I'm looking into the window, but I can't see anything. It looks like they're painting it now. But boy, the memories. This is where the mulberry tree is. Oh my goodness, this is the mulberry tree's right there. Where everybody used to go and climb and eat mulberries and have stains all over their teeth and face and hands. And that's where Grandma used to live, right there. That's where I was born. And we used to have bazaars here in the like in the summers, and they used to have queens and kings, and they had poles that they would have contests, and they'd grease the poles, whoever got up there. It was like in the old days, and it was pretty cool. I noticed when we went out there that there's a lot more interaction with the white and the Hispanic, and actually I was very surprised. Right here on these tracks is when it happened. My Uncle Ray and my Uncle Charlie had just come home, and they were coming to the west part of Eaton over the tracks, and my Uncle Charlie's old pickup just died. My Uncle Ray didn't have an arm, a hand. He had been in an accident at the sugar factory, and it had got cut off. They said my Uncle Charlie, who was in the truck when the train when it stalled, he didn't want to get off. He had the door halfway open because he was driving, and he wanted my Uncle Ray to jump out, and Uncle Ray couldn't open the door, and Uncle Ray just kicked him out, and he rolled out. It was an awful time for everybody. I was too young, but I heard stories about that, and just thinking about it, I didn't know my uncle. I was only 9 months old, but I heard some good stories about him. And what's really crazy is that neither one of them had heard the train. It was such a happy time because this is my savior tree. I loved it. I would just hide from some people that were in my neighborhood that wanted me to be a bad girl, like be in their so-called gang, like go break windows and dumb stuff. So I would have to run and hide from these people every night after school. It was crazy because I would have to go to the library, which was awesome because now I love to read. It's one of my favorite things. I'd get lost in the books. Nowadays, there's still a lot of mystery there. I said that it was a happy childhood, and most of it was. But we had some things that we had to overcome, and just looking around today is just so similar to things that were happening. I thought I'd never see this again. And it's so sad because a lot of it is coming back where, you know, I was hoping that it never would. I remember sometimes we would go to the movie house, and if we were from the other side of the tracks, we had to sit on the other side of the thing, of the movie house. But I didn't care. I'd go sit with my friends. And the good part of the movie house till somebody would tell on me, and then they'd go drag me out there and throw me on the other side. But I eventually be in there with my friends again. You know, here lately, when I've gone over there, it's not racism or anything you feel. It's still kind of evil and animosity and envy. And it isn't having to do with other races, it's within the community there. But all in all, we're put on this earth for something, and I think I did pretty darn well. God put me here for a reason, and I love that reason. I have my granddaughter, my grandson playing basketball, being on TV, my other grandson having twins, and leaving a legacy for his grandfather and myself. And I have been blessed. I have kids that love me. They never leave me out of anything I look around, and a lot of people that I know my age, they don't have that. And I think that God put me on this earth so that I could go through all my struggles and realize what a blessing it was. Because look at me, I'm on top of the world now. I am.